Hello, everyone. Chief Inspector Smythe here, taking the reins of Juxtaposition's SR-72 spy plane. Do get yourself a Juxtaposition 1 coffee cup. The link's below. Just send the money to my P.O. box and you can have one of these handsome coffee mugs. Today you may need some vodka or Scotch whiskey to pour in this cup. Today's video will be entitled The Orwellian Smokescreen. I shall repeat, the Orwellian Smokescreen, right? There's a whole lexicon of terms, vocabulary, glossary of poppycock, and applied linguistics that are in play so that all the people of the world, the profane people, and many temple worshippers, believe it or not, are clueless as to the actual goings on of NATO, Swiss Bank Authority, Geneva Global Governance, which I call GGG, which today is functioning through the GIG, Global Information Grid, right? That's how COVID was rolled out on the GIG. GIG, the internet. If we didn't have an internet, you couldn't have a Wuhan virus from a bat from a cave in a food market that could break out in Paris, Milan, Rome, Brooklyn, New York, Chicago, Illinois, Orange County, Disneyland, Honolulu, Hawaii, and Sydney, Australia, and Melbourne all simultaneously? Really? Are you serious? Tokyo, Japan, too? Yeah. The global information grid is a military system, right? It's nodes on the network. Today, it's the Internet of Everything. The Internet of Everything, your TV set, your refrigerator, your toilet is attached to your smart meter. And guess what? If you're listening to this, you're a node on the network too. You, vaccinated, non-vaccinated, matters not. You're a node on the network. You see, all human beings have body area networks, wireless body area networks. And your heart pulses and your brain functions if you have tenets of thinking or cognition. You have an electronic pulse going on in your brain. Well, that's not a lot different than your cell phone or your laptop computer, which are typically tethered to the wireless router in your home or the GIG outside your home, the global internet system, the global internet grid, like military grid, GIG, GIG, global internet grid. So if your cell phone works outside the home, take a wild guess how your body works outside the home, with or without your wearable Fitbit or your heart rate monitor or your smart glasses or your cool smartwatch, is that you're hooked up and tethered to the cloud also. In other words, there's a 24-year-old keyboard commando sitting in a computer room with his keyboard logging in to see what you're doing. Now, the AI is handling most of the trace track and targeting of all the creatures within your township. Every township is mapped and has a secured corridor ID number. And then they try to get as many people inside the township to have real ID verified. And almost everyone has a real ID verified ID by now, thanks to the PCR test, thanks to the vaccinations, with the huge success of the COVID hoax vaccination, which I call the Havana syndrome. Sign me up, beam me up, Scotty, dairy cow tag. When you get vaccinated, you're getting tagged like Bessie the dairy cow. You're just a farm animal on a plantation. All right. Now, if you're not vaccinated, well, guess what? They still got a beat on you and they've been collecting all your geofencing, in other words, your activities of daily living. And they've put that into a database to kind of figure out, who lives at that house, where does the mail go, how often does that person travel, what car is registered to whom, so they can back into your real ID. Isn't that interesting that they can verify you remotely, even if you're not cooperating, even if you didn't go down to the DMV to get a real ID verification license. They can reverse engineer based upon where you live, where you sleep, and where your bank statements are mailed. They can read your mail, warrantless searches, right? Because we have no constitution, and judges wear black satanic robes, so they're not going to object. The last person in the courtroom to object to a felony crime would be a judge. Um, so the world is based upon fascism, and it always has been based on fascism for about 3,000 years. And fascism is in total control of Swiss banks who use the College of Corporations to subcontract people to help them in their world domination game. Now, what they do to minimize the amount of military force needed to control, I don't know, 8 billion people on the planet, whatever the number might be. The point is, you just get the people to volunteer for the cancer. That way, it's a lot easier to give them the cancer. And you can see they're very successful because all they have to do now is issue a command over the mobile phones using the global internet information grid. And people will go running down to their CVS and get a free donut with a inoculation that is really a bio-cyber interface. Bio-cyber interface. It's a sensor or biosensor to send and receive the commands of the highest authority, the commands that would be directives and orders to sent out to the plantation slaves, the people living under fascist techno enslavement. That's what we're moving to. We've moved away from, them's that pick cotton are soon forgotten to digital real ID, trace track, and target 24/7. It's today I refer to it as human augmentation. Human augmentation. I don't call it geoengineering of the weather. I don't call it that. I call it what it is. It's human augmentation. And I don't care how many patents colleges of corporations have or universities have concerning geo weather modification. They're worthless. Those patents are worthless. And all those patents roll up into Geneva, Switzerland, who controls 100% of all pseudo patents issued. You know that there's an equal amount of patents issued for bio-cyber interface concerning bird flu vaccination, Omicron boosters, Joe Biden COVID shots, Donald Trump warp speed. There's as many patents issued for bio nanotechnology as there are for weather modification. And those patents are worthless too. They're all deals with the devil, meaning that the owner of the patent will collect $0 unless Switzerland decides to throw some money their way. Everybody, all the corporations of the world and all the employees of those corporations are, in fact, struck a deal, a Faustian bargain with the devil. In exchange for profits and employment, they will build out a GIG, Global Information Grid, which involves routers, wireless routers, smart meters, ring cameras, LED streetlights, LED headlights, undrivable, driverless cars, electric trucks, electric cars, electric motorcycles, electric bicycles, all products that consumers really don't want. And consumers never made the choices to, get an iPod. This is not Apple Computer's idea. This is the NATO military's idea. This is what you call rolling out and deploying a military system of the GIG. Music and porn are some of the most successful forms of pacification and control. So, of course, you're going to include both of those with internet GIG delivery systems, right? You know that the global information grid, GIG, which is 100% military, that it runs on many different security clearance levels. There's the black web, the gray web, and then there's the consumer web, which will run porn and music. But beneath that, they can run snuff films and they can run secret Zoom meetings between military and banking and Hollywood studio execs. They can run on a secured line. right? That the general public can't get to. So everything's multi-purpose. It's beyond dual purpose. There are dozens of purposes for every single network. Okay, so that leads me to today's topic, which has to do with breaking through the Orwellian smokescreen. Is that essentially there's cognitive warfare, and that's existed for 3,000 years. That's where your city mayor and your city council lie to the people who live in the town or the tribe. In other words, they lie. And the reason they lie is because lying is the highest effective tool of communication. If people told the truth, then everybody would just be loners. They wouldn't be together. In order for people to band together, you have to live a lie to some extent. The more people, the bigger the lies, right? You think people in Manhattan, New York, don't think they live in a prison? I mean, they're in a prison, but their brain tells them they live in the greatest city in the world. Manhattan, New York is a prison grid, is it not? Where Taylor Swift and Travis Kelce got married at Madison Square Garden. That's like the bullseye for a prison planet. Anyway, we've always had lying, and takes the form of politics, lawyers, attorneys who can't tell the truth to save their lives, and judges who can't tell the truth to save their lives. So, can you depend on a judge or a district attorney or an attorney general or an ADA, assistant district attorney, or your defense lawyer or a civil defense lawyer or personal injury lawyer to tell you the truth about anything? And the answer is no, of course you can't. I mean, they're going to lie to you, 100%, guaranteed, because that's how they collect their fees, is on the basis of having side secret deals and no ethics. There's no ethics. Okay. That's why any profession that promotes ethics and continuing education involving ethics is a fraudulent enterprise. I come from the CPA business, and that is completely and utterly corrupt at the highest level. There are some ethical CPAs in the small sandbox, but speaking about big corporations, there are no ethical attorneys, there are no ethical lawyers, there's no ethical CPAs when they're collecting consulting fees and overlooking, incorrect accounting and pump and dumping the stocks and shredding files, which is destruction of evidence, like Arthur Anderson did in the case of Enron, and then having the chief financial officer waltz over to United Healthcare and do the exact same thing for 70% of the Medicare money that goes to hospitals and doctors. So, in other words, crime pays. That's what Chief Inspector Smythe is telling you. The reason that New Scotland Yard exists is because there's no end to corporate crime, white collar crime, which far exceeds blue collar crime or ghetto crime. So I know the focus is on those dangerous ghetto robbers, but believe me, the people who wear expensive Italian suits and shoes and ties and vests create more havoc on this world than ever before. New Scotland Yard is not permitted to go into the 33rd District of London, which is called the City of London Corporation. You know that no detective, myself included, is allowed to investigate inside the City of London Corporation. That's owned by Switzerland. They have their own Masonic police department. I can go there. I can walk across the Tower Bridge or the Blackfriars Bridge, and I can, as a tourist, walk around. But I can't conduct any um, police investigations because I have no authority inside the City of London Corporation, which is where all the banks are headquartered. All the banks that are Swiss controlled, of course, right? All right, getting back to the Orwellian smokescreen, let me just read you from a document that I have here in my crime fighting file. It's very important. Okay, listen up. Grab your coffee or vodka dish, your vodka vase and or cup. Cutting through the Orwellian smokescreen terminology. I'm going to give you some names and descriptions that will help reveal the truth of how NATO military forces are gang stalking, civilian targeting, hunting for non-compliant people as part of an authoritarian, techno-enslavement, fascist warfare doctrine. Because NATO has a warfare doctrine, and their current warfare doctrine now in 2026 is as follows. Listen carefully. You might want to write this down. The war doctrine is network centric cognitive neuroscience electronic warfare. You got that? Network centric cognitive neuroscience electronic warfare. All right? That's the battlefield. It's a battlefield of your mind that is enabled by the Internet of Everything, also known as the Global Information Grid, which is expressed with 7G equipment. 7G. We run on 6G terahertz, which is submillimeter waves. 1,000 times smaller than a centimeter is a submillimeter wave. Remember, a millimeter is 1/10 of a centimeter, and 6G terahertz is 1/1000th of a centimeter. It's 100 times smaller than a millimeter. So we're talking small, nano, right? Nano, invisible weapons, quiet weapons for a silent war. That's the nanobots. And you got literally a billion of those in your body right now. If you've been breathing air, drinking water, and working in a rose garden or vegetable garden, you are laced with nanobots, sensors dumped out of airplanes, which are now bio cyber interfaces in your body. And of course, if you get the flu shot or a bird flu or a monkeypox or an Omicron or a COVID shot, then you have a real strong signal tethering you to the cloud 24/7. Now, getting back to my terminology of the Orwellian smokescreen, let me just tell you, listen up here. We're talking about the vocabulary words such as counterterrorism, which also goes by COINTELPRO. Typically, people like myself at New Scotland Yard, we use the COINTELPRO, but we mean counterterrorism or counterintelligence. In other words, the art of war is Machiavellianism, which is to distract, divert the attention of the enemy, which you, if you're listening to this, you're the enemy. Now, there's civilians who are in the plantation known as Swiss Bank Hunger Game, because you don't have a country and you don't have a constitution and you have absolutely no ethical standards whatsoever anywhere in the world. Maybe in your family, maybe. But even today, they do generational counterterrorism techniques to separate the children from the parents, from the grandparents. All right, so we have counterterrorism techniques, but all of these things are weaponized by NATO and Geneva Global Governance. So COINTELPRO, counterterrorism, counterintelligence, poppycock, mendacity, and balderdash cover stories dominate our world 24/7. You're being lied to if you watch YouTube, if you watch Rumble, if you watch television, if you read the newspaper, listen to radio. You're getting 100% counterintelligence, counterterrorism propaganda. Okay? Those are all controlled military platforms. And there's a smidgen of little people that can get through. They have a very small, tiny audience, like juxtaposition has a small audience. Okay, continuous clandestine tagging, tracing, targeting, and location of targeted individual TIs by NATO fusion centers. That's how they operate inside. If this is Australia, if you're in England, if you're in Germany, France, Italy, or America or Canada, you know that you have a fusion center. Typically, they have a fusion center for every 5,000 people. And so my town has 10,000. So I have two fusion centers that trace, track, and target approximately 10,000 people 24 hours a day, 7 days a week, and double check their activities of daily living habits to when they break their pattern. And when they break their pattern and travel far or perhaps go out at 3 o'clock in the morning with some wire cutters looking for smart meters, they will detect an anomaly of your activities of daily living. That's called proactive policing. In other words, if they believe or suspect that you're going to commit a crime, they'll put a drone over your head or send out a sheriff's deputy who'll be wearing a NATO flak jacket and have a 9mm automatic pistol and mace and a stun gun. Remember in Star Trek in 1965, they introduced us to the phaser gun. The phaser gun had two settings: stun or kill. Stun or kill, lethal or non-lethal. Lethal or non-lethal settings. Well, today we have that. We have smart meters, LED streetlights, and ring cameras, and we have drones over your head. And they're all equipped with taser, phaser, just like your sheriff's deputy is. Okay? And they've been testing this on humans. It's called human test subjects. But it's not like the humans volunteered, because guess what? It's called non-consensual human experimentation. Non-consensual is that the controllers at the Fusion Center and at RAND Corporation, DARPA, and the Department of Defense and NATO um, foist upon test subjects that they select against their knowledge. There's no informed consent. But there was no informed consent with the COVID vaccine, right? The doctors who recommended, they don't know what's in the thing, right? Now, so that's the blind leading the deaf. How can a medical doctor recommend a COVID shot when the doctor doesn't even know what the COVID shot contains, like aluminum chalk, polymers, graphene, arsenic poison, titanium, lithium, magnesium? The doctor has no idea. And the doctor doesn't care because he gets paid to pimp out those vaccines. And your doctor functions based upon his reimbursement coding. That's why you won't ever have the flu again. It'll always be COVID because COVID pays better than the ordinary flu. So you will always have long COVID, or what juxtaposition calls Havana syndrome. But the reimbursement for Havana syndrome, which is radiation poisoning, is zero. The doctor will be paid no money to diagnose you with radiation poisoning. So you'll never have radiation poisoning, except you will have radiation poisoning, but the doctor won't acknowledge it because it's not part of the standard of care and it's not part of his payment scheme. He has no incentive to diagnose the truth. Plus, he's fairly inept at doing that anyway. All right, we have investigations like New Scotland Yard engages in. We have military assisted police. That's the only kind of police that exists in 2026, is NATO forces infiltrated through the intelligence arm of all police and sheriff's offices worldwide, whole world. Tokyo, Japan, to Melbourne, Australia, to Perth, to Adelaide, to Toronto, to Montreal, Canada, to Vancouver, British Columbia, to the ghost town known as Seattle, Washington, to the ghost town known as San Francisco, to the ghost town that's known as downtown Los Angeles. They have military assisted police. Research, yes, research, weapons research, health coding and health code violations. Yes, well, they've decided to proclaim COVID as a thing, and there's reimbursement coding associated with anything COVID. But they've also, at the same time, decided there's no such thing as targeted individuals. There's no such thing as Havana syndrome. There's no such thing as human augmentation. So that excludes Jennifer Doudna, CRISPR, and Jamie Kate of the Innovative Genomic Institute. That protects Rachel Horowitz of Caribou Biosciences, and that protects Joy Weiss and Christopher Pister of Dust Networks, now called Analog Devices. That protects Coast Aluminum and Dinovax, a COVID manufacturer who partners with Coast Aluminum, I guess, to put aluminum into the COVID vaccines, right? Why do you have to be on the same parking lot as a polyfoam? American Polyfoam, I guess, puts rubber into the COVID vaccines along with aluminum because they all share the same parking lot. American Polyheme, American Polyfoam, and Coast Aluminum and Dinovax of Emeryville all have the manufacturing facility in Hayward, California, off Industrial Parkway Boulevard. Do you think I'm just making this stuff up? I'm not. I know people aren't interested, but what do you think they do at a Lawrence Livermore National Lab? What do you think the Department of Energy does at a lab? What do you think they do at Berkeley at Site 100? What do you think they do at MIT or Princeton, where Department of Energy has PhD scientists on the payroll at all those universities? What do you think they do? Think they're looking for a cure for cancer or tuberculosis? Hell no. They're promoting and pimping out human augmentation, which is the purpose of dumping all that mesogens, smart does, MIMS and MIMOs. MIMS means micro electric mechanical sensor, okay, to get into your body where it'll become a bio-cyber interface, just like your COVID vaccine is, and your Omicron warp, warp speed Donald Trump clown show fake vaccine. It's a bio-cyber interface, a sensor to tether you to the cloud, just like you are a dog on a leash. And you are. You're a dairy cow on a leash. You're on an electronic wireless leash as part of a colonial imperialism, technocracy, techno-enslavement, fascist religion, Geneva Global Governance. All right. And it's Geneva Global Governance who consolidates and universally adopts and decides who gets what patents. It's all centralized in Geneva. Immigration, the World Health Organization, the patents for electromagnetic products, geofencing of weather, geomodification of weather would be determined in Geneva as part of the United Nations, as part of the World Bank and the International Monetary Fund, who will pay companies for patents or withhold payments. And they also decide maritime law, which governs the ethics over those patents. And I got bad news for a patent holder. If Geneva decides to revoke your patent, they can do so legally because there's no laws, and they're in control of the martial maritime law courts. It's all part of their eugenics program, which we don't call it that because it sounds bad. So we call it anthropology. Eugenics is a part of anthropology. Then there's threat assessment evaluation. Well, that's using the AI to ring a dinner bell whenever they see one of the clueless citizens break their pattern of predictive programming. In other words, they know in the database what your normal habit is for daily activities of your life, daily living activities, activities of daily living. And when you break that pattern, that is called a threat assessment evaluation, which will be kicked up to a human being if you're walking near a smart meter or a 5G tower, which is now running on 6G terahertz. And they'll take appropriate action using the sheriff or a drone, and they can put you down with a manic episode or rodent dropping toxicity. And the medical examiner doesn't know the difference, and there's no determination of cause of death. All right? They have threat assessment teams and supervisors at the fusion centers. Then we have psychological warfare and operations, also known as PSYOPs, right? Well, Charlie Manson became a PSYOPs, not initially, but later, 4 months after the murders, he was chosen as a scapegoat, and they rolled out a PSYOPs for the general public. They'd already sent a powerful message to the replacements for Sharon Tate, Abigail Folger, and Lena LaBianca, who were then already replaced within 24 hours of their deaths. And they all got the message that you're not allowed to resign from duty under NATO forces, or Gladio kill teams will come onto your property, which they did. We have that's called behavior modification, also known as sending a message. We have psychotherapy. We have psychiatric referrals. You cannot trust a psychiatrist or a psychologist. They record your conversation. And if you're working with a lawyer or a NATO controller or a Hollywood agent, If you have an agent or a lawyer, your psychologist will play the tape for them so they can control you better because they know about some of your personal secrets. Yeah, it's kind of like confession at the Catholic Church, kind of like auditing in the Church of Scientology, right? Yes, I'm not joking. This is all extrajudicial punishments. You could be a targeted individual by a priest or an LDS bishop. The LDS bishops have priest penitent privileges, meaning that you can make confessions to your LDS Mormon bishop and he can rat you out to the FBI or to the Quorum of 12. Yes, or a contract killer. They can all do it. Okay? Occupational health codes, entrapment, defamation, harassment, false investigations, what I call kangaroo courts, and controlled offensive behavior. All of that is possible within maritime law, which is not based on ethics, it's based on pacification and control. So there are some official and unofficial military intelligence terminology. Let me continue. Distributed interactive simulation, known as DIS, acronym DIS, distributed interactive simulations. We're involved in that every day. It's also called gaslighting. So when you hear a Trump story, or you hear an LGBT story, or a woke message story, or a Maria, Navratilova story, or if you hear a, gay rights story or a racist story, that's a distributed interactive simulation. Or, Charlie Kirk story, or Charlie Kirk hoax murder story, or Donald Trump hoax assassination on July 13th story. Those are simulations, distributed interactive simulations. There are literally tens of thousands of those going on throughout the world to to gaslight people, to get an emotional reaction. So you're not thinking clearly when you get angry and excited. There's revolution in military affairs. That is an acronym, RMA, revolution in military affairs. That's based on deployment of exotic or non-lethal directed energy or neuro weapons, also known as the electronic battlefield. Now, it's a little deceptive because we use light and sound as well as magnetic resonance. So EMF is only one of three delivery systems for quiet weapons for a silent war. It's also known as revolution in military affairs, RMA. Then we have low intensity conflict, military acronym LIC, low intensity conflict. This is a military term for asymmetrical warfare against civilians. That would include me, Chief Inspector Smythe. Chief Inspector Smythe is subject to low intensity conflicts, also known as war against civilians, known as net centric cognitive neuroscience electronic warfare, right? Then we have targeted individuals, or the TI program. This is used to dehumanize a citizen who's non-compliant and could potentially influence other humans to think and activate their tenets of thinking and cognition that maybe they're being lied to by their city council, by their governor, and by their pseudo president, or King Charles, or Emperor Trump, or you name it. Macron, the French prime minister, maybe he's a liar. He was at the Tour de France today in the Pyrenees. Chemtrails being dumped all over the sky, and nobody's talking about all the chemtrail dumpings between France and Spain. And it's 103 degrees. I can't think of a more toxic world than riding your bicycle in 100-degree temperatures with aluminum chalk to breathe in. Anyway, that's a part of distributed interactive simulation where people think they live in a real world when they live in a global war on terror battlefield. All right, counterinsurgency doctrines, how to handle non-compliant people known as targeted individuals. TI is code 4 for silent. Hit, if you get a code 4, that means you're going to be terminated by a manic episode or rodent dropping toxicity, known as a heart attack. There's non-investigative subjects. There's test subjects that are targeted. There's subjects to active surveillance programs. There are subjects to counter surveillance programs called Ubervalence, Ubervalence. There are targets, subjects to biohacking, trace tracking you in your apartment or home. There's targets that are utilized for electronic and biometric data gathering. Like when you get a map in Houston, they have a kiosk that will take your eyeball iris recognition. That's biometrics. Fingerprints, palm prints, PCR saliva, blood test, eyeball recognition, palm print. That's biohacking. And people are voluntarily giving all that up. But they were doing it before with the PCR test. Now they're doing it with kiosks to get a city map. It's pretty dishonest, pretty cunning. It's Machiavellianism. We have electronic and biometric data gathering, goes in the database for the data center. We have test subjects for human experimentation and exotic non-lethal weapon testing. Havana syndrome doesn't need to kill you, just gives you a headache, ringing in your ears, nausea, vomiting. We have Monarch, which is mind control slave Manchurian candidate sleeper program. That's been around my entire life. Since the early 1950s, we've had Monarch, trauma-based mind control. Monarch is trauma-based mind control. The Mormon Church practices that in terms of satanic ritual abuse of children, and that's well documented in the Mormon Church. I believe it's fairly well documented in the Roman Catholic Church as well. And this is the molestation or dunking children in a swimming pool and telling them to worship Satan or else they're going to drown, and other things, which could involve Jeffrey Epstein and Alan Dershowitz, Noam Chomsky, Woody Allen, um, etc., having to do with Little St. James Island, having to do with large homes in Miami Beach or Manhattan, New York, or throughout the world, including Switzerland, that could involve the raping and torturing or tormenting or ritual murders of children under the age of 18 years old. This would expand the Jeffrey Epstein case to, the who's who. Multiple domain warfare, electronically induced black magic. It's just radiation poisoning, people. It's just neuromodulation. It's called molecular engineering. It's called once you're tethered to the cloud, they can perform CRISPR gene editing, gene splicing, and modify your DNA, and or give you nightmares, dreams, directives, orders, commands remotely, wirelessly, because you have a wireless body area network, which I've already explained. Then you can expand the program of targeted individuals to gang stalking, and you can stalk a whole neighborhood. You can have organizing, stalking via electronic harassment. I've already told you that includes ring cameras and smart meters and LED streetlights, which includes light and sound. It's not just electronic, it can be light and sound. Contract stalking, security services stalking, the burglar alarm company that you hire is surveilling and spying on you. They can stalk you. They can turn your system on and off. They can allow murderers to come on your property, or they can engage the weapon system themselves remotely. We have terror stalking, terrorist stalking, non-compliant stalking. Most terrorists work for NATO. Most terrorists work for the FBI and the CIA. In other words, they're contractors. They're not on the payroll, but they're part of the budget of the CIA. So you think that the leader of the Black Panthers, which would be Huey Newton and Bobby Seale, are actual advocates. They're not. They're just scapegoats for the CIA, just like Sonny Barger was for the Hells Angels. He's the pseudo leader, but he's not in charge. That's true at the Church of Scientology, and that's true with the People's Temple and Jim Jones, and this is true of the Church of Satan with Howard Levy. His name is Howard Levy. They want Anton LaVey is Howard Levy from Chicago, or Krishnaventa, who was the leader of the Fountain of the World Church in Santa Susana Research Lab at the Manson Spawn Ranch, Box Canyon area. He was a scapegoat for a fake religion in the 1950s called Fountain of the World Church. It's like the Church of Scientology and the Mormon Church. Joseph Smith, Brigham Young, they're not any different than Jim Jones or David McCatchis of Church of Scientology. They're just clowns. They're total clowns, military, Masonic clowns in an Egyptian Tower of the Pyramid chain of command called the obelisk. We have predatory gang stalking, cause stalking, flash mobbing, workplace bullying, workplace mobbing, social mobbing. We have bullying on steroids. We have hate stalking, multi stalking, covert warfare, ritual gang stalking, also known as Jewish Masonic Satanic ritual abuse. We have cyber stalking, cyber torture. United Nations uses that term for gang stalking. They call it cyber stalking, cyber warfare, cyber terrorism, vigilante stalking, domestic terrorism, spook stalking, witch stalking, satanic spiritual targeting of the supernatural realm, satellite terrorism, criminal harassment, organized harassment, social harassment, adult bullying, vehicle stalking and harassment, electric cars gone wild, like Girls Gone Wild on spring break. We got electronic cars. We got Paul Pelosi gone wild in a Maserati crashing into a parked car in a bicycle lane last Friday at 2:30 in the afternoon. Paul Pelosi gone wild. I would call that vehicle stalking. Secret blacklisting, sanction listing, enemy of the state, targeting, organized community surveillance. You have cameras at your city council meetings. You're going to pretty soon need a real ID to go in there. Threat assessment, risk assessment, social engineering, peacetime operations, blood games, Jewish mob stalking. Then we also have what's referred to as the program. National Security Agency refers to it as Global Spy Network, Signal Intelligence, known as SIGINT, SIGINT. That stands for Global Spy Network, Signals Intelligence, and EMF, scanning network, satellite tracking, targeting, and torturing of individual civilians based upon their brain fingerprint. That's right, it's called your social score, also known as your brain fingerprint, right? That's what we learn at New Scotland Yard. We have authoritarian political warfare, where Trump the other day said that there are too many people in America who believe in free speech. It's very foolish. There's free speech is a very foolish thing, and we have a lot of foolish people in the United States. I swear to God, that's what Donald Trump said. The Manhattan Project for Counterterrorism, term that was made by John Poindexter. We have the Manhattan Project for mind control, sometimes referred to as MK Ultra. We have invasive electronic brain experimentation. That's Timothy Leary working on Ted Kaczynski at age 17. Ted Kaczynski is age 17. Timothy Leary's like 30, 31 years old. Applying Ted Kaczynski with psilocybins, LSD, off campus at Harvard University while Ted Kaczynski was on scholarship and graduated in mathematics from Harvard University after 4 years, 3 of which was tortured with electronic brain experimentation by Timothy Leary and a Jewish fellow by the name of I forgot his name. He was from Stanford. He got his PhD from Stanford University. His name was Alpert. Cyber and cyber warfare against targeted individuals, electronic magnetic mind control, electronic warfare, neuroscience, cognitive warfare, which we've already discussed, remote neural warfare, monitoring manipulations. Acronym is RNM for neural monitoring and manipulation. Remotely done, remote neural monitoring and manipulation, RNM. Cybernetics, which is steersman, man to man to machine integration. Brain to brain interface, machine to brain interface. Brainstorm. Natalie Wood and Christopher Walken were in a film where she was murdered before the film was finished. Brainstorm is about computer to brain interface. Brain mapping, the Risota brain. Brain research for personality studies, brain research for perception studies, brain research for training the AI and robotics. You know, the AI is stupid, right? The AI is not intelligent. It's dumb, dumber than a box of hammers. We have global warfare on terrorism. We have institutionalized DARVO, which stands for deny, attack, and reverse the victim and offender. Deny, attack, and reverse victim and offender. DARVO. Other people involved in this program are the CIA, DARPA, which stands for Defense Advanced Research Agency, EU Human Brain Project, the United States Brain Research through Advanced Innovative Neurotechnology. We have Innovative Genomic Institute at Cal Berkeley, run by Jennifer Doudna and Jamie Kate at 2151 Berkeley Way. They're involved with gene splicing and Frankenstein monstering your cellular being, your DNA, and monkeying with your cell structure. We also have the NIH, which is Dr. Fauci's criminal organization, National Institute of Health. They do brain mapping there at NIH, and they do hoax vaccines called the Corona COVID vaccine. That's a hoax. And you can put the CDC in there. They're a propaganda wing. No science going on at the Center for Disease Control. There's no intelligent people working there, only criminals. Brain mapping projects to digitize human consciousness, improve cybernetic human machine capabilities, tethering them to the cloud 24/7 to enhance humans into super soldiers. Obedient slave is the correct terminology, not super soldier. And this will increase the AI's capacity, means control over people. Computer to brain interface. That's what we're talking about. We have echelon electrical bioweapon systems, Havana syndrome signaling, again, SIGINT, SIGINT. Do you see? This is human augmentation. It's the melding of microbiology, micro technology of nanobots, sensors, injected or breathed or entered through vaccinated farm animals into your body, into your bloodstream, to create a bio-cyber interface and tethering human beings to the cloud 24/7. That is human augmentation. They can send and receive. They can send you commands. They can send you nightmares. They can send you influencing. And then they can harvest you like a dairy cow. They can take out your electronic magnetic essence and store it in a lithium battery, right? We've come a long way from messengers running from village to village and the Pony Express, and then the mail delivered by pony and wagon to the railroads, to eventually airplanes and jets and ships and boats. We have now the gig, global information grid, which also known as the Internet of Everything, because you, the human being listening to this, you are a node on the network, just like your phone is, your mobile phone, like your television is, like your smart meter that measures how many times you flush your toilet. We have Project Beta. We have military operations other than war. That's called MOOTW, MOOTW, military operations other than war. We have lethal and non-lethal targeting in COIN, United States Counterinsurgency, COIN, COIN, United States Counterinsurgency Cyber Warfare. descriptions of programs that pursue black operations. Well, that's all top secret stuff. It's I can't tell you if that's the majority of stuff because it's secret, right? I don't know. I don't know what I don't know. I can tell you they've taken cognitive warfare, which they've had for 3,000 years. Now they're digitizing it through the global information grid to give you basically poppycock, mendacity, and balderdash 24/7. You can't believe anything that you see on your phone. And you can't even believe your eyeballs sometimes because we now have illusions and holograms in our sky because they've polluted the heck out of things. You've only got your tenets of thinking, your deductive reasoning, and the most important thing is experience, which is a horrible thing for the children because the children have no experience. That includes teenagers and kids in their 20s. They have no idea what's going on. They have no basis to judge anything. They've been completely and utterly augmented through the poppycock. And most of the kids are vaccinated, which means even if they could control their tenets of thinking, they're tethered to the cloud. All right, that's my video for today. Do like and share it because, as you may know, I am Juxtaposition's channel is heavily shadow banned here because we speak the truth and we're in the small sandbox and we're trying to get out. And the only way to grow this channel is to purchase one of these coffee cups and become a paid member and send this link to this video to other interested parties. It's the only way I know of to get over the fact that they've spent the last several hundred years since 1865 and before, really all the way back to Sir Thomas Newton. Was it Isaac Newton? Isaac Newton, who was working with light weaponry, aka prisms through light direction of the sun, which has been weaponized today with photonics and linear accelerations and optogenetics. So we've now taken Isaac Newton's ideas and turned them into LED streetlights and headlights in cars. So we're outnumbered, outgunned, outmaneuvered, and the only thing we can do now is to outsmart the AI. Thanks for listening. Have a great day. We'll talk soon. Bye bye. This is Chief Inspector Smythe saying cheerio.